Welcome to Speak with Purpose, a celebration of thought and influence, where bold ideas ignite action. Join Christine Gagnon and the TEDxCatawba community in shaping the future.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christine Gagnon, founder and organizer of TEDxCatawba. We're here today to introduce one of our esteemed speakers for our 2025 event to be held here in Hickory, North Carolina on June 14th at the Drendel Auditorium. I'm joined today by Cassidy Burel. She is the founder and head designer of CassB by Design, a Kernersville-based studio specializing in custom bridal and evening wear. A graduate of UNCG's Consumer, Apparel, and Retail Studies program, she's held leadership role in Threads and the National Millennial Community. She has also earned multiple scholarships and awards. Welcome, Cassidy. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me today.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here.
Amazing. Okay, so I love your background. I know we'll get all up in that and talk about that, but I want to kind of work backwards here. So, where did this all start? Did you know from day one that you wanted to be a designer? Tell me about how this started.
So I was one of the lucky ones growing up to where it was a pretty early realization of what I wanted to do. I have a little snippet of a story that I can tell you, which is exactly what happened. I guess it was maybe fourth grade, so really early on, and I was at it was a Christmas party for just lots of friends that we grew up with, and we were as a kid, playing hide and seek with the other kids, and I found my way into one of the closets, which actually, later found out was the host closet, and she found me in there, and that was fine. She was very, very nice. But whenever I was in the closet, I'm seeing all these fabulous fur coats and evening gowns. I'm just totally wowed, forgot to hide. So the game, throw off the game. Game is canceled. But the host found me in there, and instead of like totally thrashing me, kicking me out of the closet, she ended up leading me back to my mother, but then gives me one of these like totally stunning fur coats. Which was random, but also so wonderful, and kicked off this beauty, this passion as soon as I put it on. And I thought to myself that I wanted not only to always feel that way, or at least as often as possible as a woman, but then also to, create that feeling that I thought was so special for other people. So fourth grade, it's pretty early on. And I know that's a really specific story, but that's exactly what happened. And so here we are, 25 years later, doing exactly that.
Do you still have the fur coat?
You know what? I finally had to throw it away, or I don't even know what happened to it because the lining was coming out. I wore it every day to school, which is as cringe as it sounds. Like,
Wow, you were rocking the fur coat in fourth grade. I love it.
I was the weird girl, and that's fine because I was having fun. I felt really good about myself, and my mom's like, yep, she's sweating, but this is what she wanted to wear. She let me dress myself. That was very special. It was special to me, but it is no longer in existence, but it was great.
Tell me a little bit. I think when we spoke before, we were talking about your TEDx talk, which we'll get into, but you had mentioned that, I believe, correct me, that you grew up with brothers. And so tell me about that experience. And here you are wearing fur coats and wanting to be a designer in the fourth grade, and you're hanging out with your brothers. How many brothers do you have?
Three biological brothers, and then my dad and mom are both now remarried, so I only count my additional siblings because we grew up together, lived together, so I guess another two on one side, and then girls just on the other side, but
I
lots of
see.
boys growing up with, lots of boys that were, family friends, so it was kind of like the only girl situation. It's exactly what you would expect. Lots of hand-me-downs from older boys. Skinned up knees all the time from playing sports. I was big into sports whenever I was younger. And whenever I was also, I told my grandma, and she would tell you this too, that I designed a camouflage wedding dress for myself.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh. I know you just got engaged. Are you going to follow through with that dream?
super,
Congratulations.
super still gonna make it myself. Definitely not gonna be camouflaged. Yeah, so that was tricky. It was really more late high school years and college before I really got more of a clue. Always interested in fashion, yes, but Anybody who knows me would say the exact same thing. It was a joke. It was a joke that I was into sports and was much more tomboyish growing up, even though I loved fashion. It was really later high school years and college where I really found what I was the most passionate about specifically within the industry. Because camouflage it's an industry in fashion.
Right.
It's not anywhere close to what I ended up doing.
So there's a pivot here. I think the camouflage design, maybe your siblings and kind of growing up in that way. And you said you found your way when you went to design school in terms of where you wanted to focus. How did you know?
How did I know what type of apparel ended up wanting
Yeah.
to do?
Yeah. Because I almost feel like, and no offense, I'm kind of like jumping in, but when I think of like wedding dress design or evening wear, I think of, and this is probably biased, but like bridezillas and people yelling at me and not getting it right. And, like these things that sort of give me anxiety.
No,
I'm just probably watching too much TV, right?
the
But
TV. The TV really blows that out of perspective. I'm gonna be honest. I've worked retail in the bridal industry. I've sold wedding gowns. I've done alterations with wedding gowns, and I make custom gowns now. And I'll tell you, it's hardly ever the brides that are the bridezillas. I think we should say momzillas. It's always the moms that are the problem. I'm gonna be honest. Never the bride.
mm,
Never the brides. But I mean, design school is it's a designated time slot where yes, you're learning to sew and to perfect your craft, but it's also a time to be able to explore different types of apparel. So I definitely started on more of the menswear route. I don't know if maybe growing up with brothers impacted me in that way, but definitely much more suiting and coats. I also didn't have a lot of money in design school, so upholstery fabric, because of where we are in North Carolina, is much more common and really either inexpensive or free because of the places in the area that would donate fabrics, textile mills closing down.
oh,
So I explored a lot more with that. And for menswear, more structured fabric often makes sense because, if you can think about the strength of a man versus a woman, just like the sheer pressure that they might put on any of the seams, more structured garments made more sense to me. But after, I think maybe into my first year, I made a dress and it was tulle and it was pink and it was sheer. And then I covered it in beads and it was beautiful. And then I put it on and I was like, this is it right here. Let's go do this 1,000 more times and then forever into eternity.
that's so exciting. Also, we talked about offline this sort of thought, and I think I would feel the same. So, there's many paths, but to me, there's like two obvious paths, and one takes a bit more courage. So, one is maybe to go to like a design house after university and kind of figure out how to work under a brand. The other, which is super courageous and amazing, is to go off on your own and start your own label. So, tell us a little bit about, for our listeners, that journey to be able to say, okay, right, I'm gonna do this. It's CassB. Here we go.
Well, I would say I certainly wanted exactly what you just described. That was the plan. And I'll talk a lot about that also in the speech I'm going to give, but without giving anything away, that was, a big part of what kind of shifted my career after graduation. So game plan, the 10-year plan, really it set into motion. I was scheduled. This is what I had been working towards. I wanted to move to the New Yorks of the world, to Seattle or California or to obviously New York, work under another label that I really felt like I could gain a lot of experience for, because school's great, but you can't learn everything that you needed to in school. So if the end game was to be an entrepreneur, to have my own business, my own brand, I felt like it made the most sense to study under somebody else, to apprentice, or just to work at an atelier that so that I could get firsthand experience seeing, hey, this is at least one different way that you could go about this. And I felt like with that knowledge, it would give me the highest likelihood of success for when I decided to branch out on my own, because I think fear of failure is a huge deterrent from really making any kind of decision. So that was the plan, like you said, but that's not exactly what happened, because in March of 2020 is when the pandemic kicked up, and I was intended to graduate from design school in May. So,
Ah,
yes,
that's interesting timing. So that changed your path.
very interesting is a word. Interesting word that I guess you could use to it. Maybe a little bit defeating, to be honest. I was really excited about this new career launch. I'd been in school for a long time, working really hard to be graduating debt free. I was really excited. Was making plans to move to New York, and then being told that your degree that you've been passionate about since fourth grade is not an essential business, not allowed, and you kind of just have to take a step back and go, well, since pouting doesn't pay the bills, I guess I'll do something else. So it definitely took a little step back. Maybe took 2 years to kind of take the jobs that were open at that time. No one was hiring apparel designers. Definitely not a time to start on your own. So I worked in the two essential businesses that were open at that time. I worked in grocery, since medical is not exactly what I was qualified for. I did that for a little while. Things did start opening back up, and I took a very non-glamorous job doing alterations, which also doubled as like a bridal sales associate. So, that's wasn't where I thought I was gonna land after graduation. Not what I planned on. But it actually gave me a little bit more experience than I thought that it was going to, and gave me an opportunity to see, hand in hand that I could, in fact, maybe interact with clients on my own and start offering what I had been as a side hustle through college the whole time. So in 2022, so that's 2 years later, it's not that things are more normal now, but they're opening back up and opportunity is arising. And if you actually look back, 2022 was a booming year for bridal, actually, because everyone had been locked down for 2 years. Everything was canceled. Things were pushed, deposits were either given back or lost. So people were really pushing for everything in the bridal industry. And so that's when I revamped my website, started advertising for custom bridal and evening wear on top of alterations. And so, it was a little bit of a shift, but it's really and truly, it's everything that I have ever wanted a lot sooner than I thought I was ever going to get it.
That's what I was just going to say. So there's so many things you said that resonate with me. Well, first of all, I got married during COVID and I had to borrow a friend's dress. So like,
No,
and not only that, so my friend is super teeny tiny when she was married. So I think it's like a size 2 or something, like I just can't even. And so her dad, who was a friend of ours and our sort of neighbor, like jerry-rigged the backed clothes. Like, so in pictures it would look good, but if I turned around, we were like, okay, this is interesting. It doesn't quite zip, but there's like a cute thing here.
No one was there to see it anyways. Not allowed either.
No, it was a video. We did a video with my parents, and
Yeah.
then I think we had my neighbors over. So it was just, yeah, I totally understand that. The other thing you said, I love this idea. Well, first of all, I know the 10-year plan thing, and I actually was on a podcast, I think 2 weeks ago, with one of our speakers, and she's very much about, having a plan. And she had said something along the lines of, I tell everyone that, or ask everyone, what do you want to do in like 5 years or 10 years? See, I'm the kind of person that I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea because, yeah, so I agree with like the intellectual perspective that you should have a plan. But I also feel like life is so unpredictable and, we just don't know where the paths are going to take us. So, you can be mindful, but to have such a rigid plan, like I've never been about that. And I finally just got comfortable with that, I would say 5 years ago, which leads me to my next point, which I love, is that you got to your, I wouldn't say end state, but you've got to your like dream state that much faster through these sort of pivots and twists in the road that perhaps like you couldn't predict, nor to your point were they as glamorous as maybe you would hope they would be. But where you are today is that dream state because you wanted to have your own label, your own design shop, and that is where you are. So how do you feel about that now that you look back? Maybe other people are going through the same thing.
I was really blessed to have a really supportive and very encouraging family and friend support system. So that helped me get where I wanted to be honest. So, I mean, I guess I could say proud, really proud, really thrilled, really thankful. You know, it's not a one-man show, so I'm excited about the opportunities that I've been given, and it obviously would not have been possible without all the other moving parts and the people to make it happen. But it's I work really hard. You know, I think any entrepreneur would say that. Any business owner would say the same thing. You know, you work, you try as hard as you possibly can so that you don't have to clock in from 8 to 5. So you work all the time instead.
Yes, I can relate to that.
But you know, I absolutely love it. On the weekends, my fiance, he says, "Stop sewing. Why are you still working?" But for me, it's exactly what I would like to be doing with my time. So it's hard. It's tough. It's a tricky situation. But you know, all that being said, the 10-year plan that I had made from high school to college, you know, I knew it was going to be 4 to 6 years in school. I was really hoping for 3 to 5 years working in the design industry. And even during college, I kind of figured that what I wanted to do, which is it's all things custom, it's all very hands-on. It's not really a very, I'm going to say, a common job. You know, I was talking about that with my intern too, that hands-on sewing is not something that we really have very frequently in the United States. It's an art that is either outsourced or just it's just not here. And so that really
Mm.
turned out created an accidental monopoly in this area in North Carolina. So it's everything that I've wanted. I'm thrilled about it, and I keep thinking about, you know, what's the next 5 years, what's the next 10 years will look like. And so to your point, you know, how can you have such a rigid plan and then, well, mine got smashed. Or
That's okay. Many of mine have been smashed, so
yeah,
it's
no,
fine.
you gotta roll with the punches. So I guess maybe just leaving more opportunity for change in a way that you didn't expect, and not allowing that to totally defeat everything that you've ever wanted. Can still help lead you to the next step, even if it looks different than you thought.
I love that. And I think one of the things about being okay that our plans got smashed is this notion of controlling every little thing. You know, it's like when you let go, which then led me to a thought. One thing I love about you, and I don't plan on getting married again, so I will be coming to you maybe for a different reason, but is the fact that you're very humble. And many designers, right, in at least, and I have limited experience, but I would say stereotypically on TV or the little that I know, or like, no, I'm doing it this way, or like, no, this is what's best. And when we were working together and we were talking about a project we were going to embark upon together, it was more about like, tell me about yourself
Hmm.
and tell me, you know, you want to dig into almost like my psyche to get a vibe for me as opposed to telling me how you're going to do it.
Oh yeah.
Um, is that and I know that that is a vibe that I personally love, and I'm assuming that's very intentional. But tell me more about that because that's special. And you talk about monopolies. I'm not surprised because that type of work style is probably fantastic, especially in the industry of weddings and evening wear.
Well, yeah, it's first of all that method of thinking, it comes from a place of wanting to create something memorable and special for someone versus just a completed product. So, you know, the original thought process towards why do I want to do what I want to do? You know, like could you just go make money doing anything else? You know, because if that was the point, then definitely this is not the most lucrative option. But but the point is to make something memorable and make someone feel special. I felt really special that very first time the host put that fur coat on me. I loved that. I wanted to capture it. I wanted to feel it all the time to where I wore it every single day, right? So it doesn't necessarily need to look like that, but working with so many different types of people, you know, you get people of all different kinds of walks of life. You know, you get people who are confident, people who know what they want, people who think they know what they want, people who have no idea. And I would say most women that I meet either don't know what they want or don't know how to communicate it. And so it's really about asking the right questions to dig deeper into who someone is, to be able to see what or how they view themselves or how they would like to see themselves, how they would like to feel, to see what they're passionate about. And so once I get a little bit of insight into what they're excited about and what makes them feel beautiful, I can then go about designing something for them. And that piece ends up being a lot more special than a t-shirt that you go shop off the rack that you're like, this is true. I'm going to buy this. Something that is created uniquely for you. It carries so much further. It means more. It makes you feel different. And that's why I create, right? To create that really special feeling for anybody who wears what I make.
It's clear to me, I think, that the fur coat experience was really significant because what you said is, I felt special when the host put the coat on me, and now you want other people to feel special. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the vibe you give is it's not about yourself and, yourself first and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm like the best designer ever, which you are. But it's like, I'm happy because I made these people happy. And the byproduct of that process is fabulous fashion,
Yeah.
which is right. It's a really humble and holistic perspective, and it's very heartfelt. So I love that. So I'm sad because last year I missed your fashion show. And I know that it's a lot of work to put a fashion show on. So can you tell us when you might do one again?
Yes, I have been looking at 2026. As a studio, depending on how many people you have working with you, it can be tricky to produce a 20-piece collection and then do that every single season. So you guys all see like New York Fashion Week every single year. There's more than one person working on each of those things. So 20 this is what we're looking at. But a unique part that I like to incorporate in my fashion show is a little bit of I call it vintage CassB or CassB archives. And so that's, it gives, and I showed a lot of this too at my last show. It's a culmination of a journey as a designer, things that you've made that you're really proud of that lots of people have not seen or have never walked the runway, that were often made for an intentional purpose and now get, a new light of day. A model gets to wear it and is excited about it. A photographer is excited to photograph it. People in the audience get to experience it. And then my favorite actual segment of my fashion show last year was not the new collection, but I had some very brave clients who were willing to walk in the fashion show in what I had made them. So it was quite a few brides who I had made either custom ceremony gowns or maybe a second look or a reception outfit or rehearsal dinner. I had vintage gown revamps from my brides who they had their mom's gown. They wanted it turned into maybe like a corset and a pair of pants, pageant clients, birthday dresses. So special thank you to my clients for being very brave. It's not a normal thing to just hop on a runway and walk. But so if we're going to plan for 2026, you would definitely expect brand new pieces, hot off the press, but then also some of my very favorite custom client work walking the runway as well. So stay tuned.
I cannot wait for that. And also for TEDxCatawba, I think that people are in for a treat. So, a little secret, we won't share too much, but I think you're going to have some pieces as exhibits. Is that right?
Could be, could
All
be.
right. We'll have to people are going to get excited about this. So I plan to be there in 2026. I can't imagine the lift that you have to undertake to show 20 pieces. I am not surprised though that your clients want to walk because the way that your process works, right? When I was saying and I don't mind talking about this, there's like certain parts of my body, particularly like my hips, I'm always like, oh my gosh, like I look this way or that way. And you're like, let me design this for you, right? And so I'm not surprised to hear that. And that's amazing. So I love that you do that.
Thank you.
So I would love to hear maybe just a couple more things from you. First is, well, okay. What is behind you? Because that looks amazing. That was completely like, I need to, my eyes just go there. That's a beautiful, I don't know if it's a whole dress, a part of a dress. I don't know. I could kind of take it off the mannequin and just rock it, I think.
It would be so cute on you. We got to get you something fluffy and delicious.
Yes.
Yes, this is just one of the pieces that I was actually working on today. Earlier this morning, my intern and I were working on, cutting out all of these really beautiful embroidered appliques, and we were working on strategically placing them on the bodice. It's for one of my clients. She's fabulous. I love when my clients want to experiment with something a little bit less traditional. So this is her second look. and she loves flowers. She has so many colors that she's incorporating, and she has this really beautiful bouquet. So we specifically chose embroidered flowers to mimic the bouquet, and then we've patched them together. It's going to have some cute sleeves. Still working on the skirt. You can't see in the video, but half of it has pins in it still.
Okay. So the sad part is that's spoken for. Okay, I understand.
It is. All that to say, it is 100% spoken for.
So what I was going to ask you before I got distracted by this beauty is, what do you love most about your job?
Okay, so I've always loved working with my hands. I've always loved whatever creative element that you could implement at whatever point in time. And so, studio art is actually always something that I love too. But after college, it's just realized that I loved sewing so much more. And so about this, if we're thinking purely physical, I love the beauty and the artwork that goes into designing the gown. I, with my hands, sew it together, put it together, fold the fabric in a special way that really highlights the features about my client that they are either confident about or would like to be shown in a different and more flattering way. And so then to that effect, yes, I love the beauty and the artistry that goes into making something with your hands. But I mean, we touched on this already. It really is. It's the experience getting to work with so many different types of women and people in general, and seeing a different person leave than maybe when they showed up, And it's getting this ultimate level of maybe they didn't think that they could ever feel this special in this, and getting to be a very small part of something that's usually really special. Because if it's for their wedding, it's a very special time. Your wardrobe can really elevate your level of confidence and excitement for the day. And if all I had to do was make a dress to make them feel the most beautiful they've ever felt, that right there, just gotta rub that in. That right there. I love it for my clients, getting to experience it with them, and it makes me want to do it over and over and over again.
You're very clearly passionate, and that resonates with me. So I'm going to ask you a question about your advice for other women. I think you had told me a story, and I don't want to share it because I think it's part of your talk, so we'll leave that out. But there's so many people that I think every day aren't focused on what they're passionate about, whether through facts, circumstances, or what have you. Do you have any advice to women who are looking to connect more with their passion, but they're just not quite there for whatever reason? Probably mostly, let's say fear is one of the bigger factors. What's your advice?
I think it's easy to say, don't be scared. I think as humans, as individuals, we are not only our harshest critic, but we're often the only ones standing in our way of anything that we want, right? The way that we can feel, the way that we approach any kind of situation, the way that we shut down ideas that we have before even like saying it out loud, thinking it to yourself. I think women specifically, we shut ourselves down really quickly. I wish I could wear that, but I don't have the body for that, is a really common, or, oh, I couldn't, that would look great on you, but not me, I don't think, maybe they don't feel confident enough to just take the next step. So if I could say anything, I say this often, like, cut yourself some slack. You're your harshest critic. You're the one giving yourself a hard time. Everyone has opinions. Who cares? If you could just cut yourself a little bit of slack, you will see that. I mean, it opens up a space for creativity and opportunity and confidence that you may not have thought was possible for yourself. And I'm here to encourage it. So
that is one of the best pieces of advice I've heard in a while. So I am going to leave off there. Cassidy, thank you so much for joining us today. We are honored and excited to have you at our TEDx, and we look forward to seeing you in June.
Yes, I'm so excited. So excited.
To all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week for another episode of Speak with Purpose to get insights into our speakers, sponsors, and partners for TEDxCatawba. You can also learn more about our independently organized TEDx event and purchase your tickets on our website, TEDxCatawba.com. We're also on social media. It's TEDxCatawba. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. Thank you so much, and see you next week.